Welcome. Welcome to my podcast. It's Keenan. I am alone in my boudoir in the bedroom. And it's actually 2 months after, almost 2 months after I actually took the first steps of getting the recording equipment and starting to record this podcast. And I did not know where it was going to go. The idea was like, shout out my therapist, first of all. My therapist who, told me, especially recently how I have had fewer shows to kind of keep my mood up, fewer comedy shows like over the past many months, going back at least till the summer since I moved back to New York. And I think my mood has been down, and like he's like, you need more of an outlet. Do you not have a podcast? And of course I've thought about it in the past, but it was like there's a lot of reasons for this podcast. And I think one of it is I definitely need an outlet for everything, and an outlet for daily my life. This podcast is going to be about my life. And then the thing is that I have OCD and anxiety, and my OCD centers around having a dry mouth, and I'm very worried about that. I have to go on stage like that sometimes, and when I think about it and overthink about it, it makes my mouth even more dry, and then that stays in my head, and it creates an even bigger problem in my head, and creates even more dryness, and then and more anxiety about what just happened, and then it's a loop, and I'm like, oh my God, this is going to happen again, and you fear, and you have this worry in your body, and of course, anxiety and fear and worry in your body leads to more symptoms such as dry mouth. So it's not that's what's going on, and it's been going on a long time, and I've kind of hid it for a long time, and I've kind of kept it inside because of shame. I don't want other comedians really knowing that this is a thing for me. For obvious reasons, I just like don't want anyone to be like, oh, he's, what's wrong? He's like, ugh. Even I'm having trouble talking about it now. It's hard to talk about. It's weird. It's weird. It's a weird issue. I still have trouble sort of talking about it. If I'm honest. And that is the point of this podcast. The more I can talk about it publicly for the first time in a more vulnerable, honest way than I've ever said it before, then I'm hoping that the grip that it has on me will loosen, and that over time, as it loosens, I am able to coexist with it. I'm able to laugh about it. I'm bringing it into my material and into my jokes and into my comedy rather than hiding it, but I'm bringing it in. And it's really part of me. Make it be part of me. Make it part of the joke. Make it light. And so it doesn't own me as much. Like I'm its bitch, Coexist with it. And that's the point. That's why I'm calling this podcast Comedian Behavioral Therapy. Okay? Because as somebody with OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, which we will get into in this podcast, alongside other things, alongside a lot of fun and a lot of jokes, as I've worked the last couple months, I have developed a structure to some beats to this podcast. We have sponsors as well. We got a lot of sponsors. I've done this podcast all by myself. It's DIY, and it's amazing that we have sponsors that are very unique. You'll see. And so, anywho, as I was saying, I don't know what I was talking about. I'm really on it. Okay, as I was saying, we were talking about, I deflected, but we were talking about OCD and comedy and why this is important. Oh, Comedian Behavioral Therapy is a play on words on cognitive behavioral therapy, which is the principal therapy I did once I got a diagnosis of OCD about the time I turned 30. I'm almost 40 now. And I was like 39, but I was like, I wanted to say 39, but I was already out of my mouth almost 40. And so I got that diagnosis, And the key to treating OCD is, if your medication management is one of it, but the other side is tracking your, sort of changing your brain. That's what's called cognitive behavioral therapy. It's changing your brain. And so through the actions that you take, because the more actions you take, the more I do something to solve, let's say my particular OCD, which is about dry mouth, the more I do something about it, like buy a new toothpaste that might feel like it gives my mouth more juice, more spit. Okay, another action would be, let's say that you were worried that you were OCD, that you had bad breath or something. An action to change that would be to ask somebody around you, do I have bad breath? And so these are all these actions that you do, but the more you do them, the more you ask for reassurance in person, the more you buy a product on a shopping spree to solve your problem, the more your brain believes that this is a real problem. And it reinforces the problem in your head. And so, what you have to do in cognitive behavioral therapy is learn to track your behaviors and stop your behaviors so your brain believes in them a little bit less. And there are other things you do too. Like you do exposures where you purposefully go on stage, for example, with the big exposure are the more anxious. The more anxious something makes you, the bigger the exposure is. And a big exposure is scary, but it can have a good effect on actually changing your brain. Like if I were to go on stage, an exposure would be get on stage after purposely making your mouth dry and see what happens. Ooh, that makes me nervous. But the point is, if you do it and learn to do it, your brain then learns, oh, I can coexist with this anxiety, and it gives less power to your fears. It's not feeding your fears, and your fears inside make you think that this problem is so real. Your fears inside your brain think this is the biggest problem. This dry mouth will debilitate me. It will make me not have a good career. It will, whatever other OCD problem you have. My fear of that if I have another OCD is like if I see a knife, I want to stab someone. You could think like this will make me not be able to be in a relationship with a person ever, because if I'm around them with a knife, what will happen? Just for example, that's a real obsession people have, where they feel like if they're around knives, they fear that they're going to stab somebody. That's not me. I'm just giving you like an example of the intrusive thoughts of somebody with OCD. And so it's all about exposing yourself to coexist with anxiety. All's that to say, we're here at this pod, Comedian Behavioral Therapy, as I stare out my window in Harlem, where I currently live. We're here because it's like, okay, I'm going to expose myself, because this doing my own exposure here, because it's kind of a double entendre, because comedians, we need to get our jokes out, and we need to. I just saw this. I do get Louis C.K.'s emails, and he said, sometimes comedians are born with this like need to tell jokes and need to get things out there. We have that. We have that need to talk things out and have an outlet. It's how we feel good, and we have the need to make jokes. We have the need to get out our stuff. So that's part of it, and that'll help me. But the other part of it is like sharing my OCD, specifically about dry mouth, which is kind of a gross topic for people. It's kind of like, even saying the word mouth is mouth. Doesn't sound so good. And people don't like it. People are like, just drink water. It's gross to some people. I'm worried that people are like, oh, I don't know what to do about that. Just drink water, people will say. I've had a lot of I'm like, yeah, I've tried that one. Yeah. One time I went to a pharmacist. I was telling him, do you know what to do about this? Ever, I've been having this issue years ago. I've had this issue with my mouth being really dry. Would you have any ideas? I was gone to doctors. So I was like, do you have anything to do about this? He goes, well, I don't know. Ever try looking at a beautiful woman? That really gets the saliva going. So I thought that was sort of interesting and not that helpful. I was like, well, maybe if I looked at a hairy butt. I didn't say that. Anyway. So the point is that this scares me to share this all with you all. This really scares me. This is very scary for me. I've thought about this a lot. I put a lot of work into this pod, and the reason it's scary is because and that's why I'm doing it. The things in my life where I've really made a lot of progress in my life are all the things that I've been fearful of. And when I'm scared of doing it, and then I actually, that I know there's value there. When there's fear of it, I know that there's value there. And I'm not going to lie to you all. I need this. This is going to be important for me. And that's why I've put so much effort in how to launch this podcast. Porque, sometimes I go into Spanish, porque I have had a rough go of it this year, and I've had a rough go of it with mental health in my life, and it's affected me quite a lot. And I want to make progress, and I want to continue to make progress, and this is part of it. And I'm really curious and open-minded to see how this journey goes, and how it unfolds, and see if it changes me. And if I become more comfortable talking to all of you, if I become more comfortable being more vulnerable in public, if I become more comfortable because of it in other ways in my life, if I learn a lot about mental health, if I learn from you, if you learn from me, and we interact, and where my intense fears about where my OCD goes, if I can make some progress on how much the OCD grips me, and how much this obsession over my mouth texture grips me in my life. And I just kind of learned to be beside it, coexist rather than fight it. And that's why we're here. And the episodes that are to come are, I've developed a little, as I've gone on, I've developed a little structure to them. And you'll hear that. You'll get to see the first two pilot episodes, and then we'll go from there. And there was an episode before the first two pilot episodes that it just was a little bit not that fun, but I might release it at some point. It's just a little bit dark. And so I want people to and so that was back in mid-September. And now we're in mid-November, and I'm launching this podcast and telling you all, giving you a frame for it. So that you understand what you're getting into, and that we can build this together. And one or two more final things to say. I don't have a theme song. That will come. I don't have art. That will come. This is a DIY podcast. I'm doing this all myself. I'm in my bedroom. I don't have any help. I edit it myself. That takes time. It's annoying. It takes hours. If you can help me in any way, if you have any suggestions, if you have any way, any people that you want, that you could see for me to collaborate with on this, that would be great. And this will build, and this will get, a little more profesh over time. So I'd like to welcome you guys. Please listen to the first two episodes. I'm really excited. I'm not really going to edit this very much, what I just recorded with you guys. I hope it recorded. Thank God it did. And it's Keenan. Welcome to a podcast by the funniest comedian you know. It's called Comedian Behavioral Therapy. Can I say it? Yes, I can.